All right, so this is the beginning. As you can tell, this is a definitely different setup than we.
This is
This is,
us.
but we are rookies at trying out, the microphones and the Podtrak 4. You've seen us do an unboxing. If you haven't, you can check out the video on the Podtrak and the mics that we got. These are, I can already tell because I'm wearing headphones, sound 8,000 times better than what we had before. So hopefully, if we record this correctly,
Mm-hmm.
and it will take less editing. Hopefully, we're trying different things. We are, and we're doing that, in front of everybody because we want people to learn and say, hey, we did this much, and this was the change and the difference from previous videos. I mean, for us, what we've been talking about a great deal is that we were somewhat moving away from just YouTube only to a more video podcast.
Yeah.
But it won't just be, us sitting here all the time. But
This platform is going to be more suitable for us because trying to trying to say what you want to say in like 5 to 7 minutes is not easy. So we learned back in seminary days that didn't work for you. A 10-page paper was a problem.
no, I mean, I can't. I used to say that I can't say my name in 15 minutes. I can't talk about myself at all. But the just so people understand, I mean, we're adjusting the workflow. So, and that's it's still a work in progress.
Absolutely.
Because what we're trying to do is make it so that this is we can execute this into different formats.
Right. To reach different people, different stages, different audiences, different workplaces. Sometimes we'll have just the video format that will be on YouTube. We'll have the audio format, which is a typical standard podcast for podcast listeners or people like me who like to listen to a podcast while you're working outside or doing whatever else. Hopefully bringing them down into some shorts and what else do we say? Just some shorter clips maybe. But we also don't want this to just be a platform where we're just talking. We're sharing our journey, but we also want to bring in other people that are going to, that we'll learn from in the process and be able to share with the audience too. So,
yeah, I mean, even to take it further is that through AI technology that we're playing around with right now, we'll be able to create a transcript. We'll be able to create show notes for the podcasts,
for the website as well.
For the website, we'll be able to convert that to a blog post if you don't want to listen to, an hour or 30 minutes or 10 minutes. And then there's, if you want to read it, you can just read it. And then, who knows, this might later, we'll take bits and pieces of it and turn it into a book and, maybe an online course. So we'll see how that goes. But what we wanted to do is that we've kind of stopped some of the previous podcasts or the videos we were doing because we got distracted on trying to set this up. We want to kind of wrap up the four different categories that we were talking about when it comes to margin, and Hope wants to kind of throw a wrinkle into all that. So yeah, and there is, if you wanted to spend like a ton of time, you could break these down a whole lot further. But one of the things we wanted to try to accomplish sooner than later was to explain the why behind some of this. And so that's coming up. That'll be some stuff we talk about in the future. But share some of the things that you saw that were kind of like overlapping thoughts.
Well, first, I'm going to back up and explain the differences between mental and emotional. We're going to blow away.
We just survived a pretty major storm last night. So
yeah. So if you hear chickens or dogs, then that's them reacting to some wind outside that's still blowing around. So the differences between mental and emotional basically boil down to mental margin is having that mental space to help us to be able to have clear thoughts and to make like good decisions. And then emotional margin is having enough margin in your life to be able to control your emotions as you are, dealing with stress. So those two really overlap so much because I know that just being stereotypical woman here, there are certain times of the month when I am more emotional, and I know that when I am more emotional, I don't need to be making decisions. So because they will be emotional decisions and not clear, thought out, wise decisions. So your brain just went somewhere.
Well, I was just going to say that, like, I can definitely see where some of this overlaps because, when I'm super stressed out, then, I can't think. That's my term. When I reach the point, I was like, I just can't think. Don't ask me other questions. I can't process anything right now. So at the same time, there's a strong possibility that I would have a harsh reaction to something that just kind of sets me off because I've got zero margin in there for.
Well, you were saying sometimes you just say I can't think. I know that there have been times when you've come home from work completely stressed out and just asking you, do you want water or do you want tea to drink? You have made it's like you're maxed out on all the decisions that you can possibly make for the day, and you just can't even think. Like you just can't make a decision, or it's long and drawn out. So
yeah, and I can be extremely rude in whatever my response is because I've had all I can take, and that's not excusing that at all. That's why we're talking about this because people really need to check themselves,
right.
Which is make some hard decisions in your life so that that's not what you're like every day coming home from work. So but by the same token, at work when I did the same thing there. When it's just been way too many 911s or just train wreck jobs going on, then the inability to plan for tomorrow, think about what needs to be happening in the future, or being nice, to anybody because I've got, I know I've worked with some crews long enough, and they just know they can see it in my eye, and they'll literally say to their crew, "Don't ask Michael any questions."
He's maxed.
He can't handle any more today.
Yeah. So the managing of stress then for both mental and emotional margin is just very important. I think learning to be self-aware, and not that is like the ultimate excuse, or that it, I don't know, like it doesn't make it okay, or you shouldn't like maintain a stress level and just say I can't do those things at all, period, because this is where my stress is, so I don't do these things. Like the goal is to lower that stress so that you can make those decisions and do those things that you should. Say thank you to your wife and things like that.
Exactly. And I mean, on the other side of the coin, if you're not the stressed out one, then occasionally, you got to be the bigger person and take a deep breath and go, okay, let's give him some time. It used to be standard operating procedure in the house that I would come home and nobody would really talk to me for about the first hour, which is sad, to say, but is what it is.
Well, we learned that you needed that time to decompress. So sometimes you wanted to come home and you wanted to spill everything and get it all out and process it. And then sometimes you just did not want to have a conversation about it. Usually it was no conversation in the evening, and then the next morning it was like you had to spill everything.
Well, the funny thing is that if you go back to that time period, we didn't have cell phones.
Yeah.
So the high technology at the time was a voice pager, and that was cutting edge. I'm telling you. And so I didn't have anybody to vent to until I got home. Now, usually what happens is I call about 2 or 3 times a day and just go,
I'm not gonna believe. So, I was just looking at my notes here. For both of these areas, then, in learning to engage in self care is another way to be able to have margin in both of those arenas of our lives. So, what would you say? We've been doing a lot more. We still have a lot of work to do. But what would you say might be some things that we've been doing self care wise that have been helpful?
well, let me just start off by saying that this is not easy. If anybody thinks making these adjustments in your life are going to be easy, they're not. And especially, at our age, we've been doing this for a long time, and it's going to take a minute to kind of break the cycle of what we've done for so long.
And the habits of our upbringing.
Right, right. I mean, to be honest, right now, since I am not currently working full time for some fund or anything else, I'm a lot more in control of my time and my yeses and nos. I have we do this often. We will slip back into old habits, and I have taken on too much on side jobs and this and that, and then had to say, oops, I did it again, so I need to back out.
I call that use time to clean out the commitment closet and get rid of those things that are not benefiting us right now.
And we've had to say, no when we thought we weren't going to really have to say no anymore because we were, on top of it. But it's just like, we've downsized the house and stuff multiple times and then gone right back into having more than we need inside the house again. Still working on that as well. But I would say that right now, and not many people have this luxury, because we are a lot more in control of our time, then you know what? If I am feeling a little ornery at 2:30 because
just can't think.
I can't think. Well, guess what? I can close my eyes for 15 minutes. Not a luxury I had in the past. And sometimes I can close my eyes for 5 minutes, and all of a sudden I'm recharged and I'm ready to go. That never would have been the case in the past. It used to be that basically when we had our crew, I would take a hard nap on a pile of plywood during lunchtime because that was the only way to keep going.
So how did that lunchtime go?
Yeah. So
like 5 minutes of eating and
the rest was napping on plywood and then back up and running at it. So I missed out on the social part of our lunchtime together. But in general, we're just constantly having to say, if we do that, like, is it really a wise use of our time and finances, which we'll talk more about tomorrow.
Yeah.
But
next episode.
But it's an ongoing process that I am constantly reminded that this is not easy, and we are currently blessed, and it's going to be harder for someone who maybe the situation is that both spouses are working full time. So we can talk about options in the future, but we've taken some pretty drastic steps. We're planning on taking some more drastic steps. Like I say often, is we're going to have to make some more hard decisions. But
I always feel like those hard decisions seem to be my decisions. Is it just because you're able to say no more often?
Maybe just because I have done it professionally more. When people would ask me, on jobs and stuff, and I would just say I can't. I'm sorry.
Right.
So I've done it a lot more in the field. So that kind of carries over a little bit more, but it's personality as well.
Yeah, the little complimentary things. Where I'm the yes man. So usually.
So, and I often have to say, honey, why are you doing that?
Because, like, well, some of the things that I've had to step out of and say no to just recently were things that I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So, one thing that I think we often forget is that a lot of things, even good things, bring stress. And not that it's, stress doesn't mean it's a bad thing necessarily. Like, last year we were planning a wedding and it was tons of fun, but it was also a lot of stress too. So it was a big celebration, but at the end of it, we were all completely exhausted because, celebrating requires energy. If you have ever been to, a gathering and somebody's sitting over in the corner with no energy, they're not participating, sometimes it's because they just have nothing left to give to it.
Yeah, to be clear, that wasn't our wedding that we were planning, but it was our daughter's.
Yes.
And if you need help with virtual planning for your daughter's wedding, you can.
Hey, we mastered some things.
Yeah, we did. We learned some stuff, and it was affordable, relatively speaking, but it was a lot more fun than I had anticipated. So
I would say that was one of the really good things that came out of it is the number of people who afterwards said, I had so much fun. And we spent money, but we did not spend anywhere near what the average is for weddings today. So
yeah.
Thank you, Kaylee Stevens Martin. Okay, so another aspect of emotional and mental margin is being able to challenge negative thoughts. I know that you've always, or when we first got married, you were the bring it on man. You were like, you love to challenge and love to put me in the most struggling subdivision and I'll get those job sites, under control and get those houses finished on time.
Do not practice that.
So, because of that, you have changed a lot in the way you, take things on. And I think it's easy. I think it's easy for me sometimes as I am older. We're mid-50s now. Sometimes it can be a little daunting to think about making changes and making some of the changes that we're making right now and the things that we are tackling. I don't necessarily have that bring it on attitude all the time. And sometimes.
I'm losing
it. Yeah.
Because I'm not 25 anymore. So.
Exactly. And I think that it's easy. I never was that bring it on person to begin with. But at the same time, I think with age, it's easy for us to be a little discouraged and think that we can't do things. It's easy to look at the world of YouTube or whatever and think that they're all these successful people are in their 20s and, we're old dogs.
That's a good point.
But I think we're learning is that you can teach old dogs new tricks. So old dogs can surprise you sometimes.
We definitely resemble, but that was huge mistakes I made back in the early 20s, and I paid the price for it. I put myself in the hospital multiple times because I kept saying bring it on. And the problem in the business world now is that companies expect too much. Just recently I was working with a group and they had hit a sweet spot. And when I joined them, I mean, I just thought this is a dream. Like, I could do this for the rest of my life. This is a dream. I never thought I would ever say that.
What do you mean by sweet spot?
I just mean that it wasn't where there was just, like the employees didn't have anything to do. They were bored, and just sitting around and twiddling their thumbs. At the same point, they were also not stressed out and scrambling and making bad mistakes because they just couldn't do all the things that were being asked to do. So it was right there in the middle where it was a good level of work.
They were in the middle of the page and not in the margins.
Not in the margins. Yeah. And at the same time, the product was good. All parties involved were enjoying themselves. All parties involved were making money. It was a sweet spot. And just like about every business, they lasted in that sweet spot about that long. And then they lost it. And it started feeling like, oh, here we go. And most of us who were doing work with them had experienced that, with other funds in the past who were like, yeah, here we go, same thing, going to do the same thing over again. And then stuff starts to slip and, expectations just are ridiculous and get unmet. And then one thing happens to another. And
I remember you using the image of they just kept cranking the dial up. So it's like if you're with a company that you're in a sales position and the sales, you have a quota that's at one level. And then when you meet it and you exceed it and you are making really good bonuses, then they raise the level to a higher quota and then a higher. So it's like you can't necessarily be rewarded for doing a good job because they just keep raising the bar, and what your performance expectations just become higher than is possible.
Yeah, and this is, a discussion for a later date, but, sadly, if, the powers above saw where the dial got turned one notch too far, if they would just back it off a little bit, then it would be okay. But instead, it's just a constant turning up, and it just doesn't ever stop until it crashes. And I get it that you want to get your bang for your buck, and so this is just the growing pains of every company, and that they all go through it, no matter how small, how big they are. It's just a rocky road, and it never is a sustained level. So anyway, it's sad.
It is. Well, that kind of leads to, you were talking about the people around you being people that you enjoyed and people that were enjoying their work. And so another aspect of emotional and mental margin is just to be able to surround yourself with like positive relationships. And we've definitely together have been in some working situations where we were surrounded by some positive people, and then also definitely some that were negative as well. So how would you rank the importance of that when you're looking at maybe a job or church?
Well, kind of look at it on two different levels. One of them is that you want to enjoy the people that you work with, because if not, to be honest, it doesn't make any difference how much money you make. It can be so miserable that you just want out. You just want you're done. And so the sense of team, the sense of community is huge. And it, if you're working together, the experience is a lot more rewarding. The other side of the coin too is that I forget the exact number, but you're kind of the product of the people that that you spend the most time with. So
the five people closest to you, you're like the average.
Yeah, so if you end up, and you're working with a lot of negative people, it's just a negative experience. If you're all stressed out, you got no margin, then, they are going to rub off on you, and vice versa. You are going to rub off negatively on them as well.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, because I've had relationships where, um, someone just was always wanting something from me constantly, and and that is just not something that you can be around for a lot of times. And then there's all kinds of levels of this, but in order for you to improve and to be a better whatever you are this time next year, you need to surround yourself with people that are on the same page, that they are on the same boat. You're all rowing together,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it's you don't necessarily need to be the sharpest knife in the drawer, but you also don't need to be the dullest as well, so that you can bring other people up in certain areas, but that you're learning from who is the sharpest knife. So
Yeah. So, in wrapping up emotional and mental margin, what would be 3 things that you might suggest to someone to help to nurture that?
well, obviously one of them is one we keep going back to over and over again. That's just saying no to certain things.
To reduce the stress.
Yeah, you just got to find your limits.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I've noticed over the years is that I don't have as much. It takes longer for me to recover from something than it used to, and so where I could snap back from some before, it's a lot harder now to do that. So saying no, but you need to know, you know, you need to know yourself, and you need to stop worrying about what other people think, because it doesn't matter if you're not the best at whatever it is that you're doing. You may be doing the wrong job, completely.
Well, one of the things I thought about was when it comes to being self aware of the situation and the stress that you're under, um, it when we try to control that in our own power, we're just setting ourselves up for failure. But when we stop and we address the situation and take it to the Lord in prayer, it is amazing how many times in our lives that either we've been struggling with something and I go and I pray to God about it. I'm hoping that He will change your heart about something, and He ends up changing my heart. But we also have been in situations where we've been in difficult relationships. And when I started to pray about the situation and I started to pray for the other person, um, it completely changed how I felt, my emotions about the situation, and it really gave me a different perspective and helped me to handle the stress of what was going on in a way that had nothing to do with me.
Yeah, I think we all are guilty of trying to do it in our own strength.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we operate all day, every day, kind of deal. And um, you know, we need to be better at giving it up and giving it to the Lord, and whatever happens, happens. But
You don't like that.
I don't either. I don't.
You don't like that.
I don't either. I don't. And so it is. It would be a struggle for me. It goes back to the bring it on type mentality, and and that's not a good, healthy model
Mm-hmm.
for others. So at some point you need to realize, well, I can't do this. I can't. I mean, I do have sometimes the cocky attitude. Well, yeah, he's doing it. I can do it. Kind of deal.
Of course.
But maybe even if I can do it, I'm not supposed to be doing it.
Although, maybe number 3 is
If the audience can hear the siren and our dogs are in pain.
whoa.
Because of the sirens.
Um, so anyway, back to what I was saying. Perhaps number 3 is to address those negative thoughts and think that we're defeated or that we're too old or we aren't smart enough or whatever. And be willing to make changes and try new things. And that's really about what this is all about.
Mhm.
So here's to new things.
Making some
It's
changes.
it's spring. We're officially in spring. That's time for change and new life and growth, and that's what we're going after.
Yeah, hopefully, because we've got new chicks. Hopefully, we don't have any more freeze weather. I think we're
Yeah.
hopefully past all that. So, hopefully, you are too. Well, thanks everybody. This was an experiment to see how the mics work, and this is a moving target. So you will see something a little different as we learn more about this and improve. But hopefully, this is a sound quality, which was a big struggle for us, and we've been trying several things. So if I hit the buttons correctly, hopefully it'll sound 1,000 times better than it has before. And then we just look forward to where we're going from here. So stay tuned. Get ready for the fourth one or fifth, depending on how you're counting it, where we talk about finances, and then we're just going to start talking about why you need to do this in your life. So anyway, y'all have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.